Welcome to Creepy Corner Stories, your guide through the gloom, your voice in the dark, and tonight, your warning. They say lake houses are where people go to relax, unwind, escape. But sometimes, when you're miles from civilization, surrounded by trees that whisper and water that never sleeps, you realize you're not alone. There's something different about this lake. The way the fog rolls in at night. The way the water never quite settles. And the way the house watches you. Tonight's tale isn't about peace and quiet. It's about isolation, obsession, and the kind of fear that doesn't stay at the lake, it follows you home. So turn down the lights, turn up the volume, and remember, in the stillness of nature, the loudest screams are the ones you never hear. Let's begin. After her divorce, Marissa just wanted to disappear for a while. No phones, no emails, just silence. So when her cousin offered her the old family lake house up north, she packed her bags and left the city behind. The house was a 2-story wooden cabin perched right on the edge of Pine Hollow Lake. Surrounded by dense forest, it was peaceful in a way that felt almost unreal. The first night, she slept better than she had in months. But on the second night, things changed. It started with the sound of footsteps, soft, slow, and wet, walking across the dock outside around 3 a.m. When she peered through the window, there was no one there. Just the moonlight rippling across the water. The next day, Marissa noticed something strange in the photos she'd taken earlier. A figure standing at the end of the dock. Pale. Still. Staring. But she hadn't seen anyone there at the time, and she was sure she'd been alone. She tried to ignore it. Told herself it was just her imagination, maybe a shadow or a trick of the light. But that night, she woke again to the sound of someone walking, this time, inside the house. She grabbed the fireplace poker and crept down the stairs, her breath catching in her throat. The front door was wide open, swaying gently in the breeze. And then she saw them. Wet footprints. Bare. Leading from the open door, all the way to the living room mirror. Marissa froze. Her reflection was there, but it wasn't doing what she was doing. It wasn't moving. It was staring. Smiling. Slowly raising one hand while hers stayed frozen at her side. She slammed the door shut and ran upstairs, locking herself in the bedroom. She didn't sleep. Didn't move. Just waited for daylight. The next morning, she packed and left without looking back. But when she got home, she noticed something in her bathroom mirror. A smudge. A wet handprint. From the inside. They told the story every summer. Don't swim past the dock, the locals warned. She'll pull you under. Lena and her friends didn't believe in ghost stories. That's exactly why they rented the lake house, for the thrill. The house itself was weathered and quiet, nestled in a forgotten cove where even the wind sounded hushed. They joked about the so-called lady beneath the lake as they unpacked their bags. According to the legend, she was a woman who drowned herself in the lake a century ago after her husband vanished on their honeymoon. They said she still waited beneath the surface, reaching for anyone who dared enter her waters alone. On the third night, it started. It began with Tristan, the jokester of the group. He kept saying he saw someone on the lake at night, standing on the water, still as stone, facing the house. But every time the others looked, she was gone. Then came the wet footprints. Leading from the water's edge up to the porch. Then onto the floorboards. Then stopping, right at someone's bed. They all tried to laugh it off. They drank more. They stayed up later. But one by one, they started acting strange. Distant. Silent. Like they were listening to something just below the surface. Lena was the only one who refused to swim. The others mocked her at first, until they stopped speaking altogether. On the final night, she woke up to a sound, not footsteps, not voices, but breathing. Slow, gurgling, and right behind her. She turned, and saw them. All of them, her friends, standing at the edge of her bed. Soaking wet. Eyes black. Mouths open, filled with lake water. And behind them, a woman. Pale. Dripping. Smiling. Lena never left the house. When a search party arrived weeks later, they found it empty, except for a soaked wedding veil draped across the dock, and 7 sets of footprints leading into the lake. Only 6 came out. Elliot inherited the lake house after his grandfather passed. No one had set foot in it for over 20 years, and the family never spoke of it. Still, when Elliot arrived, the place looked untouched. Like someone had just stepped out and would be back any minute. The old photos were still on the walls. The furniture was covered in white sheets. But the weirdest part? The radio. It was on, playing a soft, warbled tune, even though there was no electricity running through the place. He turned it off. That night, Elliot had a dream. He was standing on the dock. The lake was perfectly still. A voice behind him whispered, "You came back." When he turned around, no one was there. Just the house, lit from within, though he hadn't turned on a single light. The next morning, the radio was on again. Only now, it was playing a distorted voice. Repeating the same phrase over and over, "He never left. He never left. He never left." Elliot thought maybe he was just tired. Maybe the grief was catching up to him. He tried to sleep again that night, but the moment his eyes shut, he heard it. Footsteps. Someone walking slowly up the stairs. He stayed frozen under the blankets, heart pounding, breath held, until he heard the floorboard just outside his door creak. Then stop. Then, a knock. He didn't answer. The next morning, he found his grandfather's old journal sitting on the kitchen table, open to a final entry that simply read, "You don't leave the house. The house leaves you." That night, Elliot tried to escape. Packed a bag. Rushed out the door. But when he reached the road, it wasn't there. Just more forest. And the lake, now surrounding the house on all sides. He's still there. Somewhere inside. And if you listen closely, some nights you can still hear the radio. He never left. He never left. He never left. The Moore family moved into the lake house one summer to start fresh. New job. New town. New beginnings. But the moment little Jamie stepped inside, he said something strange. "This house has too many hearts." His parents laughed it off, "Kids say weird things." But that night, Jamie refused to sleep in his room. He said there was something behind the wall, breathing. By the 3rd day, he started drawing pictures. Over and over, the same thing. A tall, shadowy figure with no eyes, standing in a small, windowless room. Always the same words written underneath, "The room with no light." But there was no such room in the house. Until they found the door. It was hidden behind a heavy shelf in the basement, sealed shut with wooden planks and rusted nails. Jamie stood completely still in front of it, then turned to his parents and whispered, "He wants to meet you." They called a contractor to check it out. But the next morning, all they found was the man's tool bag, and a long scratch running from the door to the stairs. That night, the lights flickered. The pipes groaned. And Jamie was gone. They searched the whole house. Police. Search dogs. Divers in the lake. Nothing. Until a week later, when Jamie's drawings began appearing again, this time taped to the walls. Fresh. Wet. As if he'd just drawn them. One final search was done. And that's when they opened the room. There was no furniture. No windows. No light. Just drawings. Hundreds of them. Covering the walls. All of Jamie. All terrified. all pointing at the corner of the room. And there, in that corner, was a dark, pulsing stain on the wall. Breathing. They sealed it back up. Moved far away. Never spoke of it again. But every now and then, new parents show up at the lake house. And their children? They always find the room. They were only supposed to stay a week. 6 friends. 1 Airbnb. A lake house tucked between tall pines and glassy water. No cell service, no distractions, just laughter, bonfires, and late-night swims. The first day was perfect. They unpacked, played cards, got drunk. The air was crisp, the lake was calm, and everything felt untouched, like time moved a little slower there. And then it started. On day 3, Sasha went to town for groceries. But the road she'd taken just looped. No matter which way she turned, she always ended up back at the house. No signs. No other cars. Just trees. Like the world outside had folded in on itself. Day 4, Ben swore he saw someone standing out in the lake, waist deep, staring at the house. When they all ran down to check, there were no footprints. No ripples. Just cold, still water. By day 5, the group tried to leave together. Packed everything. Loaded the car. But every route, even the trails through the woods, led back to the lake. The GPS just blinked blank. The compass spun in circles. And the sun never seemed to move. On day 6, one of them vanished. No struggle. No sound. Just gone. His bed untouched, his shoes still by the door. They tore the house apart. Screamed into the trees. Lit signal fires by the dock. But no one came. And then came day 7. Only, it wasn't the end. They woke up to the same sunrise, the same breakfast leftovers, the same knock at the door they swore they'd heard the day before. It was like the house had hit reset. Trapping them in a perfect copy of their first day. Only now, the lake water was darker. The rooms felt colder. And the reflection in the living room mirror didn't match what they were doing. Now, they don't know what day it is. Or how many times they've lived it. They only know the group keeps getting smaller, and the ones who disappear. Sometimes you hear them at night, inside the walls. Whispers. Pleading. Saying your name. If you ever find that lake house, don't stay the night.